Hello again and welcome to this second video on Ennis Courthouse. The first one looked at the island which is associated with the courthouse and the building lines shown here in blue, which are not quite parallel and converge on that island. Now on the other axis, the side walls of the courthouse are not quite parallel either, and those red lines here also converge on a point which is 19 kilometres down the Shannon estuary. It is the tower on the Augustinian Abbey on Cannon Island, and that's why the courthouse doesn't face directly north-south. There's an overview of the Cannon Island Abbey, and there's an image and an artist's impression of the tower there. Now, one final observation on alignment before we get to the most interesting aspect of this building is the roof. Now, the roof structure does not align with the walls of the building. As you see here with the yellow line on the eastern end of the building, the roof line points us directly to Kilmacduagh Round Tower to the north. We have a symmetrical alignment on the western end of the roof, and going way to the north, that line appears to hit Drumore Castle, but I'm not quite sure. There are shadows on that part of the roof. I'd have to get up there with a measuring tape and check a few things before seeing if that is the case. So let's move on to the most interesting aspect of this building. Like all the old world buildings, these buildings were built to resonate at a frequency. And they resonated most efficiently at whatever their frequency was, if they were the right size for where they were positioned on the planet. To understand this, we need to look at lines of longitude. Let's take it for the moment. We are on a globe. I'm not opening that can of worms. And from this image, we can see that our lines of longitude get closer together as we go further north away from the equator. That's just looking here at the northern hemisphere. The blue lines you're looking at here are 10 degrees apart, and each 1 degree of longitude is divided into 60 minutes of longitude, and each minute is then subdivided into 60 seconds of longitude, or seconds of meridian arc. Looking on a map of Ireland and England, we see the width of 1 second of meridian arc. As we go further north, gets slightly less. Down in Cornwall, it's approximately 65 feet. County Clare, it's 62 feet. We get to Dublin, Galway, that sort of latitude, 61 feet. And by the time we get up to Edinburgh or thereabouts, then we're down to about 57 feet per second of meridian arc. Now, the interesting thing is, for thousands of years, buildings have been built to match these dimensions. Coming back to Ennis Courthouse, we see the facade is 62 feet wide, which matches perfectly 1 second of meridian arc at where we're at, about 52 north. And Ennis Courthouse is not alone. If we go only 300 metres down the street, we see the Friary in Ennis. Now, on the left-hand side of the building, as we look at it, there's an annex with a rose window, and there's exactly the same thing on the other side of the building, which we can't see there now. But if we plot a centre line on that rose window, we do the same thing on the other side of the building, then the spacing is 62 feet. And it's not just courthouses and churches. If we go across town to a terrace of stone and brick houses built in 1902, we can see that the terrace has a centre point there where the stone plaque is located. And if we measure left and right to the end of the terrace from that centre point, we've got 62 feet in each direction. The country houses follow the same rule. This is Carnelly House. The side of the building is 62 feet. We have the same thing at Manus House, just down the road from it. We see it on the foundations of Lady Gregory's house at Cool Park in Gort, 62 feet again. So let's move away from the Midwest. Let's go to Dublin. We're slightly further north. The magic number here is 61 feet. And if we go to the Wellington Monument in the Phoenix Park, the base of the monument is 61 feet square. If we go into O'Connell Street, the GPO, behind the front facade of the GPO is a separate little building in the courtyard, and if we look at the length of that, it is 61 feet. Coming back to Clare, Donegal Castle near Doolin. We have a wall to the west of the castle enclosure which is 62 feet long, and at exactly 90 degrees to that wall, in line with the castle enclosure wall, we have a line which takes us from Cargal Stone Fort to Annadown Round Tower. Let's go to Annadown. On the shores of Lough Corrib, there is a 12th century Augustinian abbey there next door to the site of the Round Tower. At Annadown, because we're a little bit further north than County Clare, then the magic number there is again 61 feet, and the cloister at this Augustinian abbey is 61 feet square. Let's come back along that line to Doolin and follow the line onwards to Cargal Stone Fort. There's the yellow line coming in from Annadown and Doolin, and we see that the stone fort has a radius of 62 feet. Let's go to Adair, County Limerick. This is Desmond Castle beside the river there, and we have two buildings there which are precisely 62 feet long. If we go across the road to the Church of Ireland church there, we see that one of their buildings is precisely 62 feet long. If we go a little bit north, where the magic number is still 62, this is Ennis Courthouse on Lough Derg. One of the enclosures there is precisely 62 feet wide. To the west and northwest of the round tower there are two segments of enclosing wall which are 62 feet long. Moving slightly further afield, this is St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, where 1 second of Meridian arc is now 65 feet because we're going a little bit further south. We see there that one of their monastic walled gardens is precisely 65 feet wide, and the little harbour there has the opening which is exactly 130 feet wide, 65 multiplied by 2. Now let's go north. Not far from Edinburgh is a little town called Musselburgh. And if we look at a typical old house just outside the town there, this is New Hales Estate. The second of Meridian arc here is only 57 feet wide. And if we look at that 1700s house, then gutter to gutter, that is 57 feet wide. Also, their little harbour downtown has an opening which is exactly 57 feet wide. So they followed the local magic number here also, as they did all over the world. This is the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. And because Tokyo is a little bit further south, our 1 second of Meridian arc here is 83 feet long, and this is precisely the width of one of the old buildings on the Imperial Palace grounds. Moving along to Cairo, this is the Cairo Museum, one of the oldest buildings in the city. And there are two sections of this building which are exactly 88 feet long, which is precisely 1 second of Meridian arc at the 31 degrees north where Cairo is. Same in Georgia. Here's a little church in Tbilisi where 1 second of Meridian arc is 76 feet, and this church is precisely half of that measurement. Going back to Ireland for two more examples to finish with, this is on Tour Farra on Inisheer, and in the same enclosure as on Tour Farra there are two buildings there, each of which are precisely 62 feet long. And let's finish with maybe the most unusual one. In a field just to the west of Kilnaboy is a wall in a field. Looks like a crosshair and a target. And each little element of wall is 62 feet. There we have 124 feet across in this direction and 124 feet in the other direction. If we follow that crosshair alignment to the northeast, we go 6 kilometers and we hit almost exactly the same thing again. The dimension is slightly different, but we do hit the center point on this next one. If we look at the first alignment and follow that away to the southeast, that takes us through a total of 9 ring forts, center points, 9 ring forts, and terminates at Steele's Turret, which we looked at in the previous video. Now that indicates to me that it all resonated, and it all resonated together. And like a tuning fork, if the dimension is right, it will sing. The question we have to ask is, how did all these builders, like the monastery in Annadown in the 12th century and Cahergal stone fort maybe in the 8th century, and the Imperial Palace in Tokyo in the 16th century. How did they all know what the local measurement was for 1 second of meridian arc? Did they know exactly what size and shape the planet was? Or did they build just to achieve a specific resonance and then the measurement was right? We just have to figure out now what the tune was and what the purpose was. Thank you.